Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I am here bringing you guys a Christmas themed video for World Card Making Day. I'm taking part in a special kind of a hop with Simon Says Stamp, and there are several of us designers from different parts of the world using this Simon Says Stamp Ornate Ornaments stamp set that was part of their big Stamptember release. So I was thinking, I was like, oh, well, if I'm representing Canada, I should do red and white. I ended up adding a bit of green because you just gotta, it's Christmas. And I'm thinking ornaments and trees and all that fun stuff. So started off with the ornaments, and I've seen other designers do this over the years, and I've never done it. I wanted to do heat embossing over top of Copic stamped, like images that were stamped in color with Copic markers. So the first one, I only did a couple ornaments because I wanted to see how this would look. You pretty much need a stamp positioner to do this because you want to be able to re-stamp right directly over top. And if you've never done this before, the reason you need to do the heat embossing afterwards is heat embossing images and then coloring with Copic markers. One, the Copics will color the embossing because they're alcohol-based markers. So they'll completely color the embossing, as in it'll tint it whatever colors you're using. And two, most of the time, Copic markers will react funny with embossing powders. It almost like eats the embossing powder and it can wreck your nibs. The nibs of the markers kind of absorb the embossing powder. So I really don't recommend it. I know some people have no problems heat embossing images and coloring them with Copic markers, and they're fine with it. I can't recommend it. I don't do it myself. I don't recommend it. It's not worth the risk when these are very expensive markers. I invested a lot of money into them over the years. So what works is to stamp them first, color them. I'll do more coloring with the same colors down the road here, but I have that image still in my stamp platform. I haven't moved it, so I just line the paper right back up after I'm done coloring. I'm very generous with my anti-static powder tool to make sure that nothing is going to stick other than what I stamp. And then this time I inked up the stamp with Simon's clear embossing ink, and then I'm using Simon's Detail silver embossing powder. And after you stamp it and heat emboss it, it's like, oh yes. It's like, this is fun. And the reason I chose to do these extra steps rather than I could have just heat embossed it with silver onto like watercolor paper and use watercolors, but you get such a smooth, vibrant color with Copic markers. And that's what I was going for. Plus at the end, I want to add my Aqua Shimmer pen, and that of course reactivates watercolor. And I wanted to keep that smooth, vibrant color with these ornaments. So that's why I chose to do this method. And you could just stamp it and color it and not do the heat embossing. You could just, add some shimmer at the end and you're good to go. But this extra step does definitely take it up a notch. So I was like, oh, I get why people do this, why they do all the coloring and then do the heat embossing afterwards. It looks really nice. So once I did it though with those two, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm diving in here. So I did a couple more of using a different ornament from the set. Same color combo though. This is just a really nice red combo that I normally only do the R29, the 27, and the 24. But I added that R39 in. It gives it that extra bit of depth to the images. And after doing the first set of ornaments, the second, going on here, I'm not as concerned. I want to make sure I stay inside the lines because obviously the heat embossing isn't going to cover outside the lines. It's only going to be the lines. But actually the inside area of the ornament, it was kind of nice. It was like, I don't have to be super precise. I also didn't need to stamp the images. Like the black stamping, I didn't do as nicely as I normally would. If you were just going to leave them stamped in black, I would, double stamp at least, make sure your stamping's good, make sure it looks good. But because I was heat embossing over it, it didn't matter. So did all my coloring just like the first two. Put them back in my stamp platform, stamped the image with Simon's clear embossing ink, and then heat embossed with a silver embossing powder. And then I took the last three ornaments from the set and did the exact same thing. Stamped all three at the same time. Really didn't stamp them well at all. Like you can see the ink is, didn't pick up in spots because I didn't press properly. And so it's kind of funny. They look bad. It's amazing how taking those extra few seconds just when stamping makes such a huge difference, like to make sure things are stamped crisp and properly. And if you press down properly or ink up your stamp a second time and stamp it, or third even, depending on what you're stamping and what you're doing, how big a difference it makes. Because the middle one looks okay, but the ones on either side look pretty bad because you can't really see that black outline. So it just kind of looks like a hot mess in my opinion. But that's all going to be fixed with embossing, so I wasn't worried about it. So again, using those exact same reds to color this in, doing fairly simple coloring, like you still get the detail and all that definition, and you just get that smooth, bright red, deep, bright red color, which I just love. So I'm not a huge red fan, but for Christmas, obviously, there's something about classic red. So after those are all colored, line them up on my stamp platform, stamp those ornaments again, this time with the clear embossing ink, coated them with the silver embossing powder, and these ones especially, because these ones have so much detail in the stamps, especially that one that's on the left. The detail is amazing. So these ornaments alone, just heat embossing them, like these would look gorgeous. I'm like, my brain's just going in a million directions, but these would look gorgeous on like darker cardstocks, and just heat emboss them with metallic embossing powders. You know, you don't even have to do the coloring. These would look gorgeous, just heat embossed. And I'm really excited to see what the other designers did with this set, because just the ideas now are starting to roll for me, and I love seeing what other people come up with. So I will have links to all of theirs in my blog post as well. So die cut them all with the coordinating dies. And then for my card front, I die cut some BRISTOL smooth cardstock with the largest Simon basic rectangle wafer die. And this is where I pull in the green. This is Distress Oxide ink in Evergreen BOUGH. Kind of made sense, you know, the evergreen color. And I super sped this up too. Worked really hard on getting a really nice, smooth blend. I've mentioned this before. This is something I do struggle with because I have a heavy hand with things, and I like to just coat the entire surface, you know, with the ink or the paint or whatever I'm using. But this, I really wanted it to fade out. So I worked really hard on, you know, using a light hand, and worked on my glass mat and would rub off excess onto a scrap piece of paper even, and just got, you know, a really nice, smooth blend. And once I was happy with it, I took my Distress sprayer, took the nozzle right out of the bottle, flicked it against my finger to create a nice little splatter of water. Let that sit for roughly 30-ish seconds, maybe a little bit longer. And then pick that up with the paper towel so you get that fun, you know, splatter look on the background. And then to intensify that, I smushed the ink pad onto an acrylic block, added a little bit more water to that, and then just used a paintbrush to mix that up and splatter that evergreen bow as well onto the background, which, fun fact, I ended up smearing. There's a blob there near the top that didn't fully dry. I have difficulties with oxides and me being impatient, and I did end up smearing it, and I didn't notice it honestly till I went to edit the photos. I like literally didn't notice it, and it bugs me now. That's all I can see is the splatter, or the smear, but after I'd already filmed everything, you know, created everything, edited everything, I was like, yeah, no, I can't go back. So I might actually just cover that with another sequin, and then we'll be good to go. Because, you know, that's what you do. You got little accidents, just cover them up with something. And there'll be another one coming up. So I mixed pewter and perfect pearl powder together just to lighten the pewter shade. I wanted more of a silver. So I mixed those together and added water to create like a fun silvery color, and got some splatter. And got a couple big splotches, which I was totally fine with because I'm thinking, you know, like the sparkly and ornaments and all that. So I was and again, these are kind of going to get covered up. But the big splotches, I kind of liked how they looked. So I had those. And then for my sentiment, I had heat embossed a sentiment from the same Ornate Ornaments stamp set onto vellum. I'd actually cut apart the sentiment because it was stacked. The Christmas Blessings is actually stacked one on top of the other. And I cut it apart to stamp it, you know, across. And then I die cut it with one of the Sentiment Labels wafer dies that I'm obsessed with. And then for all these ornaments, I have some silver string here. And I just strung it through the top of the ornament and then taped the string to the back of each ornament with washi tape, because you're not going to see it, and that just holds it in place, which makes my life easier. So all these ornaments are strung on this silver string. And then once they all have their string, I am going to adhere them to my card with either Simon's Craft Tacky glue or Simon's foam tape. Just some I'm going to pop on with the glue, some I'm going to pop up with the foam tape just to give it that little bit of dimension. And all the string, I just string it up and around to the back of this panel, and I'm just taping it down with the washi tape as well. So the back of the panel is a hot mess. It looks horrible. You're not going to see it because I'm going to adhere it to the card base and call it a day. So I just go along and kind of arrange all these ornaments. I kind of wanted a cluster of them along the side of the card here, just kind of hanging down around this sentiment and kind of hanging over that evergreen bow that I had sponged onto my background. So I just keep adhering them into place, figuring out where I want them, and then pulling the string up and over and then taping it down with this washi tape. Any washi tape is going to work. I just, when I use up a roll, I go on to whatever next one I have in my massive stash of washi tape. I used to always use Scotch tape all the time. And then, you know, the washi tape's been building up and it works perfectly because I use heavyweight cardstock and you can't see through it. So here's where mistake number 2 comes up. I had another ornament and I was going to have it here on the inside of the card. And then there's more sentiments in this set that you can kind of build with. So I wanted to stamp the, what does it say? Wishing you and the and symbol, the ampersand, with black ink. And I totally, like, I'm getting in the zone. I'm not really paying attention. And I ink it up with the black ink. I stamp it and the ampersand's sideways. And I'm like, oh, great. But again, I have that extra ornament. I'm just going to move it over, cover that up, and we'll just pretend that never happened. So there's always ways to make it work. So that's what I did. So move the and symbol, put it back the way it's supposed to be, stamp it in the black ink, and then the words, and there's even a tiny little comma so that, you know, things are proper here. I inked those up with the evergreen bow ink. So it says wishing you hope, joy, and love. And then for this ornament, I didn't want it just floating there. It needed to be hanging, but I didn't want to add string to the inside of the card. So I used my little T-square ruler and a silver gel pen, and I'll have a link to all the supplies. Drew that on the inside of the card, so the ornament's actually hanging from something. So once I got that adhered, I can now adhere my card front panel to my card base. And because I used the largest wafer die to cut that card front panel, it's A2 size, so it covers the complete card base. So I got that adhered into place, and then I pulled out some Simon Says Stamp silver lining sequins. These were perfect. Like, I was planning on using them anyway, but when I started putting them onto the card, I was like, oh, this is all just coming together. The sparkly and the shiny and the red and the green. And it's like, okay, I'm really starting to feel Christmas, even though I'm still in the middle of, you know, Halloween and fall and all that stuff. This was a really fun card to make. So I sprinkled these confetti sequins all over the place on this card. And like I said, I'm going to have to add another one to cover that smear. And then I pulled out my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen. And you can see I started conservatively. I was only going to add it in little bits and pieces here, you know, just little hints of glitter. And then my, you know, magpie nature took over big time, and I was like, coat them all, like everything, like spray it on, like spackle on this shimmer. But again, I've also said this in videos, the beauty of this Aqua Shimmer pen is when the light's not hitting it, like as it looks right now, it doesn't look shimmery. You know, you don't see the glitter. You don't see it until the light hits it, and then the sparkle starts to pick up. So it's a subtle yet powerful little shimmer tool that I just love. So I completely cover these ornaments with it because you need the glitter, and it gives it that pop. So after I got those coated, I am going to turn the flashlight on my phone so you can kind of get a better idea, but this is definitely one of those items where seeing it in video and seeing it in pictures is nothing compared to seeing it in real life. Just the shimmer is the prettiest thing. So after I got all that added, that finally finished off this card. So like I mentioned, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. There will be a link to the Simon blog post because there's also a giveaway going on as part of this World Card Making Day post. So check out that info below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.